I want to introduce Luis Moreno. Luis Moreno educates professionals and executives and Fortune 500 companies to lead in a more people oriented and human way. Luis received a Distinguished Service Award for his contributions in race relations, justice, and civil and human rights. All right, let's welcome Luis Moreno.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to start just by thanking all of the people involved in putting this great conference together. It's a lot of work. Sometimes when it looks all good and it looks easy, it's because all of the work behind it, right, to make it look easy. I know it's not. So, Judy, Teresa, Frank, and all of the team involved, thank you very much. And thank you to the sponsors for providing the resources and the funds to make this possible. And then thanks to you for coming, right, for making the time to come. And like they say, so you can say yes to something, you have to say no to something else. So there were a lot of wonderful things that you could be doing today, but you said no to those so that you could say yes to this, right? So thank you for saying no to that so that you could say yes to this. My name is Luis Moreno, and I have a lot of passion for emotional intelligence and human-centered leadership. I read about it, I write about it, I talk about it, I go to colleges and universities, I talk to organizations, corporations, nonprofits in the U.S., outside of the U.S., everywhere, because I believe that this work is important. So I could talk to you about it for hours, but we don't have a time today. I only have about an hour. But what I want to do today is to tell you just a little bit about emotional intelligence, what it is. I know there's various degrees of understanding of it. I know there are a lot of people that could teach it or come here up with me and we can present it together. And some of you may not be as familiar. So I'm going to just kind of go over what is emotional intelligence. I'm going to share the 5 components of it. And then I'm going to focus today's presentation on one of those components, which is empathy. And we're going to talk about, what is empathy, how it can help us in the way that we connect with others, and how it can help us to communicate better so that we can leverage it for these efforts that we're doing, right? So we can navigate and combat, bias, and so that we can connect better with others so that we can have, right, better communities, and we can work on peace and conflict resolution. So with that, I actually have to pass the slides myself. All right, so just like other speakers, provided their information. If you have interest in these topics, emotional intelligence, human-centered leadership, empathy, go ahead. I invite you to follow me on any of whatever social media you use, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever works. Go ahead and follow me, and I'm continuously, constantly, always like speaking my mind about those topics and sharing thoughts and perspectives. So let's start with what is emotional intelligence. There are a lot of definitions of emotional intelligence, but I took a very, very simple one. Emotional intelligence is really the capacity to be aware of our emotions. So to understand what is it that we're feeling, what are we reacting to, what makes us sad, what makes us happy, what makes us angry, how do we, what's the energy that we have when we walk into a room, how do the room feels when you're not in the room, and when you come into the room, how do you change the energy? But it's that understanding of you yourself, your emotions, right? And then the ability to actually regulate them so that you're not the victim of your emotions, right? But that you can actually intentionally do something about the emotions that you feel. And the ability to motivate ourselves, that we can motivate ourselves, and leverage the power of empathy, which I'm going to dedicate my topic today about, so that we can have effective social relationships. And we'll talk, now you look at this definition, there are some words that are in green. It's because we're going to talk about it, about each one of them, what it means. But in years, talking about emotional intelligence, like the number one question that I get is emotional intelligence something that you're born with or not? Or is that something that you can learn? My answer is emotional intelligence is a leadership skill that can be learned, and it should be practiced, like other speakers have said earlier today, and it can be developed, and it starts with training, and that's why I go to so many organizations around the world to talk about how we can train and get better at this. So let's talk about the components of emotional intelligence. And different authors have, different terminology, and some authors list 3, some list 10, but I'm just gonna pick like the 5 universal ones that most, authors would agree on. The first 3, which are also thought of like the self trio, is self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-motivation. Let's start with the first one, self-awareness. In a lot of discussions that we've had today in the presentations earlier today, we've talked about awareness, right? We have to be aware, we have to be mindful. And this is awareness about ourselves. Who am I? Who are we? How do I come across? What am I saying to people? What am I doing? How am I making people feel, right? And this is important because we, many of us, assess ourselves more positive than other people may assess us. And that's a problem because we're thinking very highly of ourselves and we're like, wow, I'm an amazing leader. But your team members may not necessarily see you in the same light. And there could be things that you're doing, sometimes even meaning well, and yet some of your actions could be creating, people may be feeling bad, and you could be offending people with things that you're doing. You don't only offend people when you intend to offend them, you can also offend them even when you don't intend to do so. And actually, there's, a lot of conversation around intention and outcome. A lot of times we feel responsible only for the things that we had an intention on. So if I offend you because I intentionally wanted to offend you, then, I feel like, well, I would have to apologize. But if you got offended, if you come to me and say, oh, Luis, so at the break this afternoon after my presentation, somebody comes to me and says, well, Luis, when you were presenting, there was something you said, I kind of felt offended about it. I'm thinking, well, that was not my intention. So like, if you feel offended, that's your problem. I didn't intend to offend you, right? But actually, my responsibility, if I offend someone, even if I didn't intend to, I still can own it. And I can say, hey, could you tell me a little bit more about what was it that I said? Oh, no, you said, oh, I see, I hear. Okay, I get it. I can understand why you would have felt, or, why you felt that way. Let me, can I have the opportunity to share with you a little bit more kind of where I was coming from, right? I apologize that you felt that way. I didn't really mean to. And, it's important to me, this work that I do. And so, self-regulation. And by the way, in self-awareness, we think that we know everything about us, but some of the knowledge about ourselves is in other people, because other people can see things about ourselves that we ourselves cannot see. So I train a lot of leaders from different countries, and actually, one of the main problems that I see is that, like I said, they evaluate more positively than other people do. But there are some things about themselves, opportunities for growth, that many people in the organization see, but they don't see. And that, as a leader, that's a really big problem because it's limiting, right? If everybody's seeing something that you have as a problem and you are not seeing it, that's a blind spot. So one of the resources that we have for self-awareness is feedback, is having the curiosity to ask other people, hey, people come to you and offer you, voluntary feedback, and you got to listen to it. But then you also have to have the desire to go out and reach out intentionally and ask people, how am I making you feel? Right? And that's important because then we can use that feedback and get better. The third one is self-motivation. So there's a lot of studying on self-motivation because when you think of highly successful people around the world in different functions, let's take, for example, athletes, super athletes. People have gone into the Olympics multiple times and have won multiple medals, gold medals. They have, statistically, those people tend to have a higher level of self-motivation. What does that mean? Let's think of somebody like, Michael Phelps or Serena Williams, or people that have achieved amazing things. It's hard to obligate somebody to wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. and go to a swimming pool to be swimming laps, at 5 a.m. in the morning. If you don't want to do that, if it's not in your desire, if you don't feel it in your heart to do it, it's going to be very hard for you to do it. So when you look at the schedule of Michael Phelps for him to train for the Olympics, he himself wanted to go and do this, and he was like swimming back and forth and this and that, and because he had a higher level of self-motivation, and consequently, he's achieved a lot of those things together with a lot of other things, right? Michael Jordan, you can't tell Michael, jump higher, Michael, jump higher. No, he wanted to jump higher. That's why he did, right? Then you have, social skills is your ability to interact effectively with other people. I work with organizations that have employees that have very high levels of IQ. So there are some companies that have like researchers. They work in R&D, so they hire people who are very smart intellectually. So they're very high levels of IQ. But in some cases, some of them have low levels of EQ, right? So that's actually a dangerous, combination when you have a high level of IQ and a low level of EQ, because you see the world kind of black and white. And, so that's why sometimes you go to a conference and you have like a researcher present a bunch of data to you, and data, like all, and you're like, what's the story? Where's the, right? Because they don't know, they may not know how to connect with you. They don't know the importance of connecting. For them, it's like, this is the truth. And, here is the truth. Here are the numbers. And it's like, yeah, but like connect it with me, right? So, and then empathy. So empathy is so important that I'm dedicating my speech today about it. So let's start with the definition. There are a lot of definitions of empathy, many, many, many. Some are shorter, some are longer. But I have chosen, this one is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. I love it because it's very long. It's the longest definition of empathy that you would ever read in your life. You would never see anything longer than this. But I chose it intentionally for you. And actually, I tell you, one of my motivators for me to start with this practice many years ago was because I realized that there was a limited understanding of what empathy was. When I asked people what is empathy, they always told me it's walking in somebody's shoes, or is feeling somebody else's pain. Somebody, lost a relative, they are in pain, they're sad, and then you kind of give your condolences, and that is empathy. And that is part of empathy, but that's not all that empathy is. So here I am to help you, kind of expand on the definition and the understanding of what empathy is and the power that it has and how it can help us be better leaders, better communicators in our communities, in our jobs, at home, with our family, with our spouses, with our children, right? So I'm going to read. It's a very long definition, and you have it in front of you. You can read it yourself, but I want to read it. I flew all the way from Minnesota to here. I might as well. Empathy is the action of understanding, being aware of, right? Keyword, awareness. We've talked a lot about it throughout the day. Being sensitive to, right? Caring, sensibility. And vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another, either the past, the present, without having those feelings, thoughts, and experience fully communicated to us in an objectively explicit manner. Again, this is the longest definition of empathy that you would ever hear. But, so at the end of this conference, you will receive an email with like some survey. We're going to check if you remember this definition. It's a test. But to make it easy for you, here's a shorter one. Empathy is to feel in union with another person. Is making, the short definition of empathy is a decision. It's a decision that you make to accompany somebody in experience and feeling or thinking something, even when that is not what you feel, think, or experience, right? So it's to feel in union with another person, even if that person does not provide all of the detail, and regardless of whether the situation of that person matches yours, even if it doesn't reflect yours, that you can accompany that person to feel it with them. So I know you've seen this has been out on social media, and some of you may have seen it, but I want you guys to take a look at that, take a couple minutes, and then talk to your neighbor, talk to someone in your table about the chart. What do you think? Do you like it? Don't like it? What about it? Take a couple minutes, and then we'll come back. All right. All right, time's up, Microphones, where are my friends there with the microphones? So would love, anybody would like to share what you saw there on the chart? Anybody? Uh-huh. Table 22, right here. Can we get a microphone? Okay, right here. Wait a moment. We have a microphone on your way there. There you go.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, to me, it looks like the one in the blue was feeling down, and the one in the red basically came up, talked to him, and he basically said, hey, I'll take half of that load. That's the way I see it.
I love that. I'll take half. Everybody, heard that? I'll take half of that weight load, right? Wow, I love that. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Right there, table 42. We need a microphone back there. What's your name? I didn't ask about your name. What was your name? So weight load, name?
Okay, my name is Casey Miner.
Okay, so welcome back to that. Say your name again?
Casey Miner.
Casey, okay, thank you.
The thought that came to my mind is that they're making it about the one that's blue as opposed to the one that's red isn't thinking like, how can I fix it? What can I do? Me, I, all that. It's just, what did they need? And they didn't really need a fix. They just needed someone there.
Exactly. He didn't, there's not about fixing here. She was not asking, or they're not asking about fixing. They're just like, I want somebody to be there. I love that. I think there's that comment right here. Okay. I'll have a microphone coming here your way. Right here. Why don't we bring the microphone here first? And we'll have to, we could stay on this slide for the rest of the hour, but we're going to need to move. Okay.
I think what resonated with me is that the person didn't have to understand what the other person was dealing with. They didn't have to know the specifics or the details. They just needed to make the decision to be with that person in that moment and to sympathize, or deeper than sympathize, like the gentleman said, to take on half of that, but to just be present.
Exactly. So you see how we're expanding our understanding of empathy is, hey, I know I can intuitively know that something's going on with you, and you don't want to talk about it. I respect your time and space, and I'm just kind of going to be here with you, right? To be with you in your presence. So I'm going to keep moving just because of, we have a lot to cover, but one of the things that is interesting, so in the area where I give a lot of my practices in organizations that are very competitive, like in corporate, some of these very fast-growing, Fortune 500 companies, and there, when you enter as a young leader coming in, and you talk to a senior leader, and you say, hey, I want to be successful, what should I do? A lot of the feedback and the coaching that is given is focus on yourself. Focus on yourself, focus on yourself. And what you end up doing is, that's like an order that is given to your brain, an instruction, and what you end up doing is you focus on yourself. And focusing on yourself is a good thing, because, for example, on self-awareness, if you focus on yourself, learning about yourself is a good thing. But just like everything in moderation, right? There is such thing as there being too much focus on yourself, where if you think of it as a curve, right, you're focusing on yourself, and you get to a point where there is the optimal amount of focus on yourself. And you can, in fact, keep going where you actually go past it, and then you are too focused on yourself. And as a leader, from a leadership standpoint, there is actually a limit, that is limiting to you. There is a detrimental effect of being too focused on yourself. And there are many, many ways in which that manifests. I'm just going to share two with you today. One is that when we are very focused on ourselves, we are in love with ourselves, with our own world. We think like the world is our world, and we go out and it's all like about us. And when people talk to us, when they are talking to us, we have this filter that if what they're saying to us connects with something that is in our lives, in our world, that has happened to us, then it's relevant. Then you pay attention, then you lean in, and then you smile, and you're connected, and you care, right? But if it's not, if what the person is telling you doesn't connect with your world, it's not relevant. You check out. Have you ever been in a meeting when you're excited and in a table or a group of people, and then you like, hey, I want to share my idea, and then you're talking about this amazing idea, and when you finish talking and the next person is going to talk, the next person, what they say has nothing to do with what you said. It's a complete different thought, different idea, and you're like, so what about what I said? You know why that happened? Because that person, the next person after you, was very focused on themselves. And they were so focused on themselves that you said something that didn't connect with their world, they check off, and they went on, they regressed to their own world. So while you were talking, they were in their own world. And they were just waiting for you to stop talking so that they could now go on to talk about their world because they're very focused on themselves. This is an example of leadership limitation because in the surveys, in the employee surveys, one of the sources of dissatisfaction, of job dissatisfaction, is working for people that don't make you feel seen and heard and valued. When you talk, you share your ideas, and people don't care, then you're not happy. The other one is actually very important. It's relevant to what we're talking about here today, is that when people are talking to you, then your brain needs to know if what you're hearing is true or not. But the way that we go about determining that, the filter that we have, is whether it has happened to you or not, whether you have seen it. If you have seen it, it's true. If it has happened to you, it's true. If you have not seen it, it may not be true. If it hasn't happened to you, it may not be true. There are people who jump out of flying airplanes, thousands of feet up in the air, without a parachute. There are people who jump out of flying airplanes without a parachute. What do you think? Anybody? Okay. Crazy? You only do it once, okay? Well, and they do it multiple times. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? Okay, I hear I do. You're in the military there. Anybody? Somebody doesn't believe it? Anyone? Raise your hand if you don't believe it. Okay, so multiple hands up. Now my question to you is, why don't you believe it? I'm a presenter here at the conference, right? I'm a speaker, so I'm not gonna come here to lie to you. One of the speakers of the conference is telling you that there are people who jump out of flying airplanes without a parachute. That is true. You can go to Google, you can go to YouTube, look it up, and you'll see people jumping out of flying airplanes without a parachute. Now, how can they do it? Well, there are many ways in which they do it. One of the most popular is you jump first, and once you are in the air, there's a group of people who do have parachutes that jump after you, and then they kind of catch you in the air, and then they bring you down safety too. There are other people, they've developed now these giant nets where you can jump, and then, it'll absorb the fall, so you're fine. All right, but this is important because then imagine if we're going out and we're only believing the things that have happened to us. Well, there are a million things that have not happened to you, are not happening to you right now, and will never happen to you that are true, right? If I am a man and a woman tells me something that happened to her as a woman, well, I will never be able to believe it because I'm not a woman, and, so, right? If a child tells me something, well, I don't believe it because, it's like I'm not a child, and, I won't believe the things that. So if I am not a black person and a black person comes to me and tells me something, then I won't believe it because I will never, right, I'm not a black person. So we have to think very seriously about this. I live in Minnesota, that's why the accent. And there, it can be very cold, very, very cold. Sometimes I have to get in the freezer because it's so cold out that to kind of warm up a little bit. And so the expression "I'm cold" is very common because, I'm cold. But the expression "I'm cold" is a magic one because when you hear it, it activates in your brain a thermometer because you need to actually confirm for yourself if it is really cold enough for that person to feel cold, for that to be true. So the person says, "I am cold." You say, "No, it's warm." And the person, "Okay, hold on a second. I didn't say that it was cold. I said I am cold." Because I am not talking about how it is. I'm talking about how I am. It may be warm, but I am cold because I can be cold independently. I don't need for it to be cold for me to feel cold. I can feel cold because something could be happening to me internally in my world. I could be sick. I could be panicking because there's something in my job, in my home, with somebody that is actually making me so nervous that I am feeling cold. And it doesn't matter how you feel, if you're cold or hot or whatever, I am cold. And you feeling warm doesn't help me in any way, right? So The next time that somebody says to you, I am cold, believe it, because the person is telling you that they are cold. And then rather than challenging them in their right that they have to feel cold, what you have to say is, oh, you know what, is there something that I can do? Do you want to like walk inside? Can I increase the heater? Or do you want me to lend you my jacket? Or what can I do? But I want to help you because you are feeling cold. I'm going to share with you this model. I created this a number of years ago that I've used as I go around teaching about empathy. And it's called the Dustin model. And I can give, if you like it, I can share copies of it with you. This is a model to help you be more empathetic when you communicate. So let's say, for example, that so Frank and I are coworkers. And so this is what happens when you don't use the Dustin model. Frank comes to me and says, hey, Luis. I say, hey, Frank, what's going on? You kind of look, you look down there. You're worried. What's going on? He'd say, well, Luis, what happens is I just had my performance review, and it didn't go well. I got under, the average. It was not good. But I didn't do well because I was dealing with all these problems at home. My mom was sick. I had to move, and I had like all of these dynamics going on. I was just like out of my game. I wasn't doing it. I didn't put the effort, and right. Those things have now been resolved. My mother is now fine. I moved. I'm in a new house. Everything's good. I'm feeling really good. And actually, they just told me that they're going to assign me to a new project, and it is in my area. It's in healthcare, what I love. So I'm going to be able to do that. I've already started, like doing some research. Oh my God, like I'm on my game now. I'm going to do really well. So, I think I'm going to do well. And then because I wasn't using the Dustin model, after Frank tells me that, I answer, oh, Frank, you got that bad on the performance review. Who's your boss? Oh, no, my boss is Judith. Oh, Judith, wow. So it's like, do you have a copy of your resume? Because, I have some friends that are recruiters. Maybe, I can help you. I think that you should start looking out. I did not listen to what Frank was telling me. He told me in the first part that he had a bad performance review, but then he told me I wasn't on my game. I wasn't doing well. These situations were going on. That situation is now finished. I am now on my game. I'm going to be working on something that I like, right? So I'm going to do well. But all that I heard was I didn't do well. So then first he wasn't asking me for advice or recommendation. He didn't ask me to solve his problem. But my answer to him is I can help you to find a new job. Let's look at the Dustin model. Every time somebody comes to talk to us, we're going to first listen carefully to detect what is the feeling, emotion, or experience that the person is actually sharing with us. In this case, when Frank was telling me, I'm back on my game, I think I'm going to do well this time, this is my year, I'm going to knock it out of the park. What was the feeling that he was sharing with me? Hope. He was hopeful. He thinks, he's optimistic. He thinks things are going to go well. If I listen and I apply the Dustin model, I detect that emotion, hope, and then I understanding, yeah, it makes sense that he's going to be hopeful because that's his job. So he absolutely has to be hopeful. And then I make the decision to join Frank in feeling the hope with him. So instead of telling him, give me a resume to find you a recruiter, I actually say, I think you're right, Frank. Now, wow, you're in the new house. That's awesome. I'm so glad your mother is now doing really well. Healthcare, oh my gosh, you're going to knock it out of the park. You're going to do fantastic, Frank, because I am joining him in feeling with him what he is feeling. So we feel it together. And then you follow, you're sharing timely, right? You share that with him, and then you follow with it with an intention, right? Intentionality. You say, wow, Frank, and by the way, you're going to start your new job. Wow, why don't we, what are you doing this weekend? You want to come by for our house? So because it's an action. You're following up with that action. That follows the model of feel, express, and act, right? So you feel the empathy, you express it with your word, and then you follow up with a specific action of what is it that you're going to do as a follow-up to that, right? Which is also connects with compassion. All right. So today, I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to help you be more empathetic. in your communications as you go out, in your job, in your communities, at home, with your significant other, with your children, parents, anyone. I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you give the gift of empathy, which is the gift of empathy is giving people the moment, is giving the gift of the moment by placing yourself and your own experiences and your belief on pause for a moment so you can actually honor and celebrate that person that is in front of you. Okay. Think about this visual. It's the visual of a piece of furniture that has a drawer. Look at it for a moment. When somebody comes to talk to you, the moment that they come to you, think of a drawer. Think of a furniture. There's a piece of, you open that drawer, and remember, because people told us, focus on yourself, focus on yourself, focus on yourself. Now we're very focused on ourselves. We're so in love with our world. But we're going to take our world that we're so in love with, we open the drawer, and we put our world in the drawer, and we close the drawer, and we say, okay, stay there, my world, for a moment, and then I can pay attention to what the person in front of me is telling me. And then, after the conversation, you go back, open the drawer, and take your world back again, right? So we're going to go out now, from now on, we're going to give people the gift of empathy. I'm going to give you 5 tips. Tip number 1, it's not about you. It cannot be about you. I mean, it cannot always be about you. It can be about you sometimes, if it's your wedding, if it's your graduation, if it's, right? But it cannot always be about you. Because we have a tendency to think of ourselves, we think of ourselves more, we assess ourselves more highly than other people may, so we think we're the protagonist. So somebody's telling us a story, wow, Luis, my sister was like, really ill, and we were very scared because she was in the hospital. We didn't know she was in a coma. We didn't know if she was like gonna, continue with us or not. And so we're really worried. And then, we found this doctor in Houston, Texas. And then you're like, oh, Houston, Texas. Oh my God, right. Did you know that I am from Houston, Texas? Yeah. Like this past weekend, we just went there. I saw my brother. We went to this Italian restaurant because my brain is taking me to regress to what's comfortable for me. And that's my world that I am so in love with. But the person was telling me that his sister or her sister was like ill, right, in the hospital, was about to pass and stuff. That should have been really what was important, right? And this is, when we don't understand that it cannot be about us, we make mistakes. And we can make mistakes as leaders when we talk too much about ourselves and it's all about like our own thing, and somebody comes in so excited and wants to share an idea with you, and it's like, oh no, let me tell you about, we did that, last year. Let me tell you how we did it. And we're just kind of speaking about you. And then also think about this example of, so there's a couple that want to get married, right? And they spend all this time, about a year, planning the wedding, and weddings are expensive. So like you have to put all that money to pay for the wedding, and it's a lot of work. And when you so basically you are making an investment, you're like putting all that money to celebrate, your union, right? You're going to get together with somebody, you're going to get married, so you're spending all that money because it's important to you. So you're making an investment to have that beautiful moment that will stay there in history and, in your memories. But at the wedding, unexpectedly, and to your surprise, as to the surprise of a wedding and to the surprise of the bride and the groom, somebody thinks, oh my gosh, it's an amazing opportunity. Everybody's here, all the family, everybody flew here from like New York and Louisiana and Alabama, and proposes to another person in the wedding. And now, everybody's like, clapping, oh my God. And now, people are now congratulating the groom and the bride, and also congratulating these guys that just got engaged. It's like, no, it was not about you. Like they have been planning this thing for a year. You can't steal the show. And actually, if you go to a wedding, if you're a woman, you go to a wedding, you have like this beautiful dress, and people are like, look, if your dress is more impressive and more, like amazing than the dress of a bride, then you have not understood that it's not about you. It's about, we have to understand who is it about, and then kind of honor who it is about. In a wedding, it is about the groom and the bride, right? So it's not about you. Tip number 2, timing and context are critical because our brain is making connections all the time, and we make bad connections sometimes. So I always tell people, no connection is better than a bad connection. In terms of like diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, sometimes people get in trouble because their brain make connections that are wrong connections, right? So for example, imagine that, if I'm talking to a woman and she says to me, oh, because, I'm a flight attendant and I'm sorry, I messed it up. I work with American Airlines. Oh, you're a flight attendant, because my brain made a connection between airline, woman, flight attendant, right? And the person responds, oh, no, yeah, I have a lot of friends that are flight attendant, but I am actually the vice president and general manager for all operations in Latin America and Europe. Oh, okay. Sorry. Right? You messed up. You made a mistake. And we're making those mistakes all the time. I was at a restaurant the other day up there in Minnesota, and I went to the restroom, and I was like waiting to go to the restroom, and then somebody passes by and said, hey, can you get me a menu? And it's like, okay, in the brain, the person thought, well, it's a restaurant. This guy looks Latino. Generally, Latinos work in the kitchen, so this guy must be a guy that work here, right? And that's fine. It's like, oh, yeah, I can get you a menu, but I need to, right? So we're making all those connections. We're making wrong connections all the time. It also happens if somebody comes to you and says, wow, like my brother he went to the doctor and they diagnosed him with cancer. Well, like what kind of cancer? Well, lung cancer. Wow, it's exactly the same cancer that killed my dad. When they told him in 3 months, he passed away, right? Wrong connection. That's the last thing that person wants to hear. So timing and context, very important. Now, empathy is not, I told you at the beginning, one of my motivations to get into this work is that people have a limited understanding of empathy. So empathy is like feeling somebody else's pain. But actually, empathy is not only about feeling other people's pain. It's about feeling other people's feelings and thinking about other people's thoughts and then experiencing other people's experiences. So it's not only that somebody, had a loss in the family, now I'm sad with them, but it is also about feeling the positive thoughts that they have. If they're happy, I'm happy with them. They're celebrating, they have joy, they have excitement, then I join in with them. I'll give you a tip today. You didn't come for this. This wasn't in your plan, but for those of you that are in a relationship, I'm gonna give you a tip to get some points with your significant other. Historically, people think that, so I'm gonna just to simplify, it's more complex than this, but because I only have very little time, we're gonna think about negative empathy and positive empathy. And we're gonna call negative empathy this empathy that you would show to somebody that is in a bad situation. Somebody's going through pain, sadness, something, and then I'm going to, somebody, loved one passed away, and I'm gonna, go and give the condolences. I'm gonna call that negative empathy. So we have thought traditionally that if we show negative empathy to our significant other, that they're going to develop a lot of loyalty and they're gonna love us a lot for that. They appreciate that. They like, oh, thank you very much. But if we think of positive empathy, which would be when I connect and feel and experience the joy, the happiness, the excitement, the desire, these things with my significant other, these new studies are showing now that actually gets you more mileage because the person is more appreciative of you when you join me in feeling something that I want, when I'm excited about, I have a new plan, I have a new idea. Husband, it's like a couple, they get married when they're young, and then now when they're later in their career, maybe one of the two says, wow, I've been thinking about this thing. I would love to go back to school because I want to be a lawyer, so I want to go into law school. I'm excited. The other person is like, law school? It's like, what are you, it's because it could be insecurities or, who knows, but the person is not joining that person in their excitement, and then that creates the issue, right? So the next time that your significant other says, oh, I remember when I was little, I liked to paint. I wonder if I can still paint. Oh my God, of course you can paint. Let's go. You want to go to, there's this store. Let's go buy some canvases. We're going to buy colors. Do you want to do acrylic or do you want to do oil? Let's go and buy the thing. I think you can do it. Oh, I like gardening. Wow, let's go to the Home Depot. They have these flowers I saw the other day. You can buy them you join them in the excitement. Now, in the diversity, equity, and inclusion, when, so think about the Latino community. All right, something bad happened to a Latino person. Maybe a person got killed in the Latino or the African American, the Asian community, and then we go, oh, I'm so sorry, and we go to the community, you were mourning with them. But then one Latino or one African American or Asian comes up with an idea for a company, and they have a new product and a new idea, and they need just capital. Hey, it's like, can you support me? It's like, oh, well, let me think about it. And it's like, no. When something happens in my community, somebody got killed, if you don't come to tell me, I'm sorry, I'm totally fine with that. But what I want is that if I have an idea, if I have a dream, if I want to start something, that's where I want your empathy. That's where I want your support. Thank you. I'll be here all week. No, I actually won't. All right. So let people own their experience. This is important because remember, when people come and tell us that they're going through something, we become problem solvers and we start telling them, and we do two things. One is we want to solve their problems. The other thing is that we want to solve their problem by minimizing the pain they're feeling, by telling them that what's happening to them is really not that bad, right? So, hey, where are you? Oh man, I'm here in the highway. I just got a flat tire. Wow, at least you got one of the four. The other three are fine, right? And that's a problem because every time somebody tells us something that they're going through, we're always trying to find a way to tell them why what's happening to them is really not that bad. It's like I found, I lost my job. Well, but still you're alive. And so what about like oh, my neighbor's son just got killed in a car accident. And how many kids does he have? Well, he has 4 kids. Okay, wow. What happens? Oh, I feel very sad. My grandmother just passed away. Oh my gosh, and how old was she? Well, she was 80. Oh, okay, wow, she's 80 at least. She lived a long life. So it's like, you shouldn't be sad. You should celebrate because she lived a long life. It's like, no, I don't, I wish that she were alive right now. It doesn't matter what's her age. I'm still sad and I want to feel that sadness. And it's important to allow people to feel what they're feeling without, pushing them to like skip what they're going, because the body keeps a score, right? Like the book. So if I don't feel it now, I'm going to feel it later. So if I'm going to feel it anyway, I might as well just feel it now. So instead of getting in front of a person and kind of impeding them from feeling it, just kind of get next to the person, take the person by the hand, not physically, but, kind of figuratively in your mind, and walk with the person to accompany the person to go through whatever the situation is that they're going through. And you just kind of help them go through the pain and feel it and experience it, because if they do it, that is part of a healing process. They will get better and they will learn and they will grow by going through what's happening with them. In the workplace, if you're in sales, somebody, hey, what's happening? Oh, I just lost 3 accounts. Oh, it's just like you'll lose accounts all the time, so nothing to really be worried about. Which accounts were those? Well, McDonald's, it's like Apple and Microsoft. Oh, there are like hundreds of like Apples, and McDonald's over there. No, there aren't. There are very few. So like you can't tell people, no, like don't worry about it. No, we have to say, oh wow, and what do you think happened? We can see through. I have a book at home. We can see. I hope right, and kind of be more supportive. And the last one that we talked about a lot is intentionality, right? A lot of people when somebody's going through a situation, and then you say, oh, I'm so sorry, and this and that, but then you don't really follow up with any action. So then it can actually work against you, because people are thinking, yeah, whatever. You say you support me, but like I'm not seeing like the action there. So, like we all know actions speak better than words. So be intentional with your actions. So here are the 5 tips. Look at them, right? We're going to do 2 things. I want you to think about those tips and think about whether any of those tips may be able to help you right now in your current situation, in the way that you're going about, when you're showing up at work, at home, in the community. Would any of these tips help you to be more empathetic? Think about that, right? Now, because we're talking about bias, I wanted to do an exercise. There is a video out there, and some of you may have seen it. It's being watched by millions and millions of people. That is called the pale blue dot. So for those of you that may have seen it, it's, somebody had a reflection. And this is being used because it takes people different places, right? So people watch the same video and they go in different directions with it. So because we're talking about, biases, diversity and inclusion, how we can be together in community, I want us to watch this video together. It's only 3 minutes, so it'll go by quick. But take your pen and paper, and as you watch this video, take notes about where is the video taking you, what are you feeling, what do you think, do you agree, disagree, good idea, bad idea, good video, bad video, I like it, I don't like it, I will want to watch it again, I don't ever want to watch this thing again. And watch it, and then we're going to talk about it, right? So 2 things we're doing, I'm bringing some complexity. We're looking at the tips, and then we're going to watch this video. And we're going to do the 2 things together, and then I'm going to bring them back, and we're going to close the session. So we want to play it.
From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. And cherish the pale blue dot, the only home.
You're thinking, well, I came to this conference to it's like bias, and then this guy's showing me like a video about it. What's going on? What's the connection? So I want to ask, so the folks with the microphone there, for any volunteer, any brave soul to tell me, kind of your reaction to the video, liked it, didn't like it, out of place, or yes, no, relevant. We have a microphone. We have a speaker there, James, right there on table 31. So we just spent 3 minutes of our life watching this video.
So it was humbling, and it's oddly comforting in a lot of ways. It's the idea that this is all that we have, and all that we have is each other. So it's that reminder to keep practicing this empathy that we do have, and kind of working in the ability that we
Because we are here and we have to work together, we need to practice this empathy that we have been talking about so we can connect better. Anybody else? Yes, table 20, microphone on table 20. Hold on so that we can get you the microphone so that everybody can hear. All right.
With all the talk about all the terrible things that happen on the earth, it reminded me of how egotism and our focus on ourselves has caused so much damage in the world. And then that one statement about makes us think about we need to be kinder to one another. That was the take that I got out of it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Remember at the beginning of the presentation when I said there can be negative effects on focusing too much on ourselves? Table 20, right there, our friend said it. Like, we can cause war because we're focused on ourselves and what we want and what we need and what we want to show the world. Thoughts? Another thought? One last thought today from anyone? See a hand right there? Mm-hmm.
It just kind of made me think about the perspective, I guess, on your personal desire to be bigger than everyone else, and how we can kind of change that as a whole to make people think in a different way, because it's a pattern, and I guess like something that is always going to live as long as human beings live. So
Exactly. What is this thing about we wanting to be bigger and bigger and bigger than everybody else and kind of pushing through and, just going, living this life? Like, what's up with that? We got to change the framework. We can't be living like that because it's causing conflict and war and all of these things. So I want you to now, as I finish this presentation, today I share a few thoughts about emotional intelligence. It was, I have limited time, so I try to kind of be simplified as much as possible. I talked to you about the 5 components of emotional intelligence. I picked empathy. We talked a little bit about empathy and why it is important. Then I share with you 5 tips on how you can be more empathetic, right? And then I share those with you. Right now, at the end of the presentation, I would like for you to think, would there any of the tips that were shared today help me in any way in my desire to make things better in my home, in myself, in my community, at my job, with the Rotary, and anything that I do? So I would like one volunteer to tell me which tip you're going to be choosing. Anybody like the tips? Right here. So microphone, we need a microphone. Okay, right here.
Timing and context.
Okay, so you are choosing timing and context. Very good. So I want you to choose somebody here from the conference. Somebody you don't know. Choose somebody.
Okay.
Okay, all right, go ahead. And so I don't know if we have another microphone, but we'll share a microphone. Come closer and we'll share a microphone. Okay, very good. So, all right. Did you like any of the tips?
Did I like? Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought the same thing, like just really, it touched my heart. And then I started putting myself in a position where, how would I feel? Why are we here? What are we doing? And it's just that it grows and grows and grows.
So which tip, is there a tip that you want to choose? Okay, hold on.
I don't know. I can't. Sorry. The 5 topics. Okay, good. I think embrace any and all feelings.
Okay, embracing all feelings. So what I would like for the two of you to exchange contact information, and then we're gonna hold each other accountable. Like you're gonna check to see, because in the next few days, so in about a week, you need to find, like get on a conference call or Zoom or something, or get together in person if you can, and talk about, so you're gonna go out and practice, tip number, so you chose timing and context are critical, and then you chose the embrace, so tip 2 and tip 3, right? And you're gonna check with each other. How is it going? Are you practicing? Work, don't work? I wish that I had never gone to that conference or whatever, right? So kind of how is that impacting your life better, right? Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, one more, thank you. So one more, anybody else? Another volunteer? Otherwise we'll have to, any of two that wanna pick, okay, what's your name? Okay, Manoj. All right, get a microphone. We need a microphone right here. That's the problem of sitting in the front row. No, I'm just kidding. Did you like any of the tips?
I did.
Which one?
All of them.
All of them. Do you want to choose one?
They all apply to me.
Well, you choose all 5 then. Choose all 5. So then now I need you to choose a person in this room, but you can't know the person, somebody new.
I was going to choose my wife because she'd appreciate it, but I guess I won't. Frank?
All right, Frank. This is Frank and
Manoj.
Okay. Frank, did you like any of the tips? Tip number 4. Okay. Why?
I am a hog the conversation. Take it over with my own experiences.
All right. So take it. Okay. So then you know what to do, right? You gotta, each one of you, you're gonna practice tip number 4. You're gonna practice all of them. You're gonna exchange contact information. In about a week, you have to get together and say, how's it going, And then you check with the wife and say, well, is he practicing and doing that? Yeah. Like if he really is practicing all of those things, then he should be. I had this, so thank you. I had this, so I presented in a school district with all of the teachers and the, school administrators and all that, and we talked about empathy and all these things. And then the director of learning from the district contacts me and says, oh, Luis, I want to thank you because, the teachers really appreciated the content and all that. It was great. But the person who appreciated it the most is my wife, because he says now that I'm a different and a better person. But in conclusion, as my time runs up here, what I came to tell you, again, I flew all the way from Minnesota to come here to tell you that this stuff is important. Emotional intelligence, we need to work on understanding our emotion, understanding how to regulate them. We need to find ways to motivate ourselves to be better, to do better, right? And we need to have the empathy to understand what other people may be thinking, feeling, and experiencing. And we have to make the decision to join them using the Dustin model. We're going to join them in feeling, experiencing, and thinking what they're experiencing, feeling, and thinking, so that we can have better communities, we can have better homes, we can feel better with ourselves. With that, I invite you to practice this. If you have interest in this, as I said at the beginning, please, I invite you to go ahead and contact me or follow me or connect with me, and I'll be more than happy to share with you more material, content, articles, anything, information about more training. So with that, thank you so much for the invitation. Have a wonderful rest of the day.